Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on the Mic with Mike. It is the premier business radio program around. I'm the host, Mike King. Appreciate you being here with us. So you can find us on the Mike King Radio Network, which is ESPN Richmond 106.1. That's 5 to 7 every day. You can wake up with us. Your choice, 105.3. That's gospel. So we're touching your soul there. 105.3 every day from 2 to 3, as well as International Business Growth Radio. We've taken our talents global, and that's Saturdays at 10 a.m. Well, you know what? We leave a light on their friends and the family come back. They come back. See, they're so successful. They not only are they changing the world of writing books, Honesty Liller is back with the program. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm excited.
All righty. So here, we got to go with the elevator pitch first. Who's Honesty? We start with that and get that out of the way.
Sure. Elevator. Honesty Liller, woman in long-term recovery from addiction for almost 15 years in May. If I make it, it'll be 15 years. And mom, wife, and CEO of the McShin Foundation.
The world famous McShin Foundation. Last time I saw you was a shout out. We were at A Night for Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Man, when you look at that right there, a lot of people are hurting.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are getting help.
Mm-hmm.
I always ask, what's the state of people? How are people doing after these days?
Well, we're full. We have 13 houses. We're getting ready to have 14 houses. So
if you're full, is that good or bad?
It's good because we can help people, but on the other end is we have to keep getting houses because there's so many more people to help. So since COVID, with the isolation and just everything going on with the jobs and everything, there's been the addiction has risen tremendously. And the national data is 100,000 people have overdosed and died this past year. So that's out officially, and people are still dying every single day. And McShin's just there to do our part in the community, but we are pretty full to the brim. We have like 127 beds right now, soon to be like 135.
Alrighty, so one of my Quebec Honesty is here with us. So we also partner with Poplar Springs Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them, they were on the other day, I asked them about this whole idea of legalized marijuana.
Yeah.
Now, I almost called it weed, but okay, this is for the technical and official part. That's what it is. When people who are like you in your field in recovery and all that, what are you guys' thoughts on? It's like everywhere I go now, I smell.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, yo, you know what? There used to be a time all we saw was cigarette smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't smell cigarette smoke, and then we didn't smell anything except for the funk that's outside.
Yeah.
But now, you smell weed.
Mm-hmm.
What from your standpoint, what do you guys think of that, people who are in the recovery field?
So in the field, so for me, I know I can't smoke weed because I will literally do heroin. Heroin is my drug of choice. So I know weed won't be enough for me. And people have been asking me for the past year now, what are you going to do? I mean, alcohol is legal too, and I don't drink alcohol. So for me, a woman in recovery, I don't put any substances for the most part, besides vitamins in my body. But on the other end of it, I know a lot of, I say kids, but younger, 20 to 35 is usually the ones that are passing away and dying and overdosing from opiates and specifically fentanyl. So I am for, if you're going to take a bong hit instead of shooting heroin and dying, I don't know, like I'm good with that, because I'm so, I guess it's weighed on me so much for the past probably 3 years of just so many deaths. So if a bong hit over shooting heroin is helping you and you succeed in life, I'm pro bong hit.
Do you think that most people can just do that and not go down that slippery slope? Or do you think,
It all depends. Like for me, again, I can't because I know I'll end up using heroin, but there are people out there that need medical marijuana for pain, for mental illness, for a multitude of things. I guess it really all depends on what type of human you want to be. So if you're stealing or committing crimes, or like your life is falling apart around you and you're smoking legalized weed, then you really need to take a look at that. I'm not the person that says if you take some bong hits or legalize weed or whatever, the vape pens, that you're going to shoot heroin like me. It just all depends on the individual. Our world has changed, and I think the recovery movement has changed nationally as well. So yeah, we're just trying to go with the flow and individualize each person's recovery that comes to McShin.
On the Mic with Mike, ESPN Richmond here, I got Honesty. She is with the McShin Foundation. So you guys are on the forefront of the recovery efforts.
Mhm.
Do you think that people's moods and attitudes have changed more recently about addiction and recovery?
Totally. Like I said, I have almost 15 years back then, it was so much negative outlook on addiction. There's so many more people speaking up, probably for the past 8 years, the recovery movement locally and nationally. And unfortunately, a lot of those people that are speaking up are people that have lost their loved one to addiction. So there is a ton of more advocacy, there's a ton of more work to do, but it's stuff like this, being a voice, not many radio stations wanted me to talk about my addiction and recovery 15 years ago at all. So a lot of people are dying, so more people are talking about it.
That is true. So here you are in long-term recovery. You're out there, you're saying it, you get an inspiration to
Mhm.
write a book.
Mhm.
Okay, let's how long has the book been in the thought process?
For about 2 years. About 2 years, I just kind of I had kind of had an unspiritual awakening, and it's in the book about almost 3 years ago. And it's like I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I've been at McShin since I was 5 months in recovery because McShin helped to save my life. I lived in McShin.
Now, McShin's help. So Ben was there talking about
Yeah.
his story too.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we find out that the McShin has played a big part in a lot of people's. It's not just the recovery. It's like you saved my life.
Saved my life hands down. I overdosed when I was 17 on heroin. So for 9 more years, I tried to all forms of treatment back then, and nothing worked for me but the McShin Foundation and 12 step. So John took me in, John Shinholzer, with nothing but a couple bags of clothes. I lived in the FEMA house for 5 months, and then I started working at McShin. So I've officially been working there 14 years and some months, and I've been the CEO for 8 years.
So you went there and never left.
Never left. I mean, I have my own home now, but yeah,
But you
yeah.
never. So is there power? And you always talk about, explain to our listeners the power of being around like-minded people. Because if you're hanging around folks who, they're thinking about doing something wrong, you don't need to be with that crowd.
Sure. So my shirt says it all. We're hope dealers. That lived experience of addiction and recovery, there's nothing like it. There is nothing like sitting across the room or giving a hug to someone that's, to be frank with you, shot heroin like me. That's a woman, that's a mom. Just having that connection, having the connection of like really understanding what the disease of addiction is, because they have literally walked through it and came out on the other side, or may have a reoccurrence of use. Like we all have stories to tell.
That is true. It's like when I look at the whole gambling that's on TV, they give you 45 seconds of this is great, or the drugs that are out there to take care of an ailment. And the last 5 seconds, they're like, they're going through. Okay, so if all these glorious things about, hey, come gamble, but if you got a problem, here's the number.
Right.
Everyone does not have that self-control to be like, all right, I did my thing, it's time to leave. So your lived experience, can a person who hasn't lived that experience really be a good counselor?
So not a peer one. I don't
So
believe.
to be a peer counselor, what I've needed to live the experience.
Or been affected by addiction.
Gotcha.
So like
Okay.
Jill would be great, obviously, because of her whole situation with her family and her brother. It just depends on the individual you're trying to help. A lot of us, when we come in early recovery, we don't want to hear from a therapist or someone that doesn't have lived experience, because we think we're so super smart in early recovery, and we think we have all the answers because the life that we led before we came up to that. But it's really important to have that peer that has the lived experience, though. Hands down.
At what point do you go from the early recovery to long term?
Oh gosh, I don't know, months into years. I mean, I think the reality of it is, I'm not really any special than anybody else. I think it's just more of like your days add up to months, and really working on your heart and your soul. Like you can take it, and I talk about this in the book, but you can take away the drugs, but there's so much more I had to heal with past trauma and just being a woman in society alone and a mom and wife that has gotten me to almost 15 years of recovery. So
it's on the mic with Mike, ESPN Richmond. That's where we're talking with honesty. She is an author as well as being the CEO of McShin. Really quickly, we're going to get into the book. But see, this is the problem that you have when I have my own talk show.
yeah.
Because all the things I thought of and wondered, you're here to answer them.
Yeah.
So when we see the intervention,
Oh,
I
gosh.
walk in, everybody's there, they're mean mugging me, they're all upset. I'm wondering why they're mad. No, I know why they're mad.
Right.
And all those things.
Right.
Can that really get me to the recovery? Or is it I gotta hit it? And when I hit it, I know kidding, they can't sort of scooch me to it. I
Right.
have to really get there on my own to say, I'm tired of this.
Right. And I'm a big believer in not really glorifying like a rock bottom, because everyone is different. Every human is different. Like I'm not really honestly a fan of that show. But because it's a lot about addiction in like 5 seconds about recovery. But I do know intervention works. I do know when families put up guidelines and boundaries for the human, that they love, has addiction, that it definitely works. But during all of that, I still suggest you have some type of peer that has lived experience, and an interventionist, a lot of them, are in recovery too now. So, which is super cool. So I don't have like data. If you're looking for data, I don't know, but
do I look like the type of guy who's asking for data?
Well, I'm not the type of girl that gives it.
Exactly.
That is not me. You will not see any data in that book.
Okay, so here 2 years ago, you get the idea you're gonna write a book. We're gonna start with the title, Scattered Pink.
Sure. Okay, so one of my best friends, Mackenzie, came up with the name. Well, she's just good at wording and stuff. So I wanted it to have like heroin healing and something was my original. But then I was thinking about like a housewife sitting at the pool with her kid with the book open. Unfortunately, there's still so much negative outlook on the word heroin. So I was like, okay, maybe let me dial that back a little. And then Scattered Pink. Pink is my favorite color. It's like my everything, if you know me. And so scattered means intervals. So like intervals of my life is what the book is about. And then pink, the noun of pink, means coming together in your best form. So Scattered Pink, my life was completely scattered. And now I feel like I'm honestly in my best form and can get even better.
So here we are. A lot of times people have the misconception, people who are addicted, come from the wrong side of the tracks. The life has been hard on them. The first chapter of the book is, where do we come from?
So, I mean, for me, my childhood, I do have childhood trauma. I mean, there is some stuff that comes on.
So that's where you start is that, and you needed to start somewhere. Is that what it was to give a person? So we all don't come from the same place. We all don't come from the worst of the worst.
Right.
People can get to this point coming from all different places.
Right. Totally. The disease of addiction doesn't discriminate any human. So, I mean, this is just my story to tell. It definitely has trauma. I started using when I was 12 years old, and I started heroin when I was 17. So, and then I found recovery when I was 26. So 14 years I did drugs, and there's a lot of other female trauma in the book, and just a lot of things that I had to overcome and really understand like what my addiction not only did to me, but to my family.
So when we had talked before, you had talked about the honesty, and that's okay, not the play on words, that you were with your kids. And so I'm older. We come from a generation of basically lying to our kids. The parents lied to us, I don't even want to put it that lied, maybe sugar coated or whatever. Sure. You let them know who you were.
Sure.
Now it's different because my wife comes from that brutal honesty thing. I don't. It's just like, package that up a little bit better and bring that bad news to me. I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah, you can't just bring it to me like that.
Right.
So when you write the book, they're tough parts, but your family knew a lot of them already.
So my daughter did not. My daughter is now 20. She's a big part of the book because she was born in withdrawal from heroin. I used my pregnancy, and I didn't find McShin until she was 5. So she knew some parts of her life in that book. She didn't know a lot of my childhood stuff, and like she's been raised at McShin. So for almost 15 years now, she understands like what the disease of addiction is, you jail, or she's been to funerals with me. My son, I do not want him to read the book quite yet. He's only 12, but he understands somewhat, about drugs. He kind of understands like what the disease of addiction is. They both have been around McShin forever, and my husband's small business hires men in McShin, so they're at our house all the time. And My daughter and my husband were the first two to read it to make sure they were comfortable what I was putting out in the world. And they both are totally fine with it and it's out there. So
Were there some parts that you thought that was too painful, or you just laid it out?
it was a very traumatic experience writing this book.
I can
I cried a
imagine,
lot,
yeah.
especially the stuff with my daughter. I cried a lot. I feel like I've worked through a lot of that stuff throughout my recovery. But once you get, I mean, for me at least, when I write it down on paper and you're in this like spiritual mode, but I cried a lot. I got angry with myself. I had to like really, you know, talk to my ladies in recovery, you know, to kind of guide me through this process. And my husband's amazing and he's in long-term recovery as well, because I probably should have honestly gotten some type of a therapist during it, because it really brought back some stuff that I thought I worked through. So it was traumatic, but it was beautiful. It's funny too, because I'm a real model is what I tell people for my kids, and I just keep it real.
Are you a journaler, a writer?
I do
do.
try to every morning write a little something in a guided journal.
Have you always been that person?
Not before recovery.
Oh, you weren't.
No.
But you've been in the recovery thing for a long time
Almost
now.
15
And
years.
so
Yeah.
do you go back and read some of the stuff?
Oh yeah, actually, like step work, like in 12 step, I save all of that and I
Oh.
read some. Whew, I was off the chain even in early recovery. I mean, recovery like teaches you so many things about yourself, but it's really about healing your soul. But then as you get older and the longevity of recovery, there's so many other things that you go through, and you'll read that in the book about my marriage and being a female CEO and how society looks at that, and overcoming so many challenges. A lot of the book is about like body image and so many things that I have gone through in my recovery, not just about my addiction.
So the book is Scattered Pink. How can people find it out there?
So Barnes and Noble online. I like bookshop.org because that donates to a local bookstore. I just like to keep donating.
Oh, really?
Yeah, bookshop.org. If it's in your area, you just put in the Scattered Pink and it donates a certain percentage. I think it was like $1.50 per book to a local independent bookstore. So, but it's on Amazon too, but I like the bookshop.org or Barnes and Noble online. I'm self-publishing like a hybrid through KWE. You know, Kim Ely.
Yeah.
She's my editor publisher.
Oh, Lordy.
She's right there where your thumb is.
Lordy.
So she's amazing. Her team, Maria, is amazing, but I'm just going to hustle. I'm going to go to all the bookstores and just take some and beg them to put them in the stores.
One of my ESP, and that's the way you do it. We're straight up hustling here. That's what this program is. People out there who are making a difference. You know, you're going through something. When my mother passed away, I wrote all this stuff down, and I never was that person. I wrote down, and then a couple of times I went back, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know what? I didn't go back and read anymore because I was just like, that was too rough.
Yeah.
But that's why I always ask people when you come here. So you wrote the book. Give our listeners an idea of a person who has a dream and they're trying to make it come true.
Oh man, just start somewhere, do it, pray on it. If you pray, you know, talk to your people, your network. Life is way too short. And our world is a pretty messed up place right now. So if you have any aspirations of doing something positive in the world or positive in your life, go do it. Start it immediately, even if it's something small, but you got to do it. You got to learn how to love yourself a little bit more so you can spread that love to the other humans around you.
The book is Scattered Pink, A Diary of a Woman in Recovery. This is Honesty Liller. Folks, go ahead out and get the book. You know what? I haven't got mine right there. So you take a look at that. She's going to be out in the community pushing the book. It is important. It is important content. There'll be a lot of people in the community are hurting. Shout out to, I didn't know what I was getting into when I went to the heart program.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know.
Yeah.
I tried to get everybody to go to jail with me and nobody wanted to. And they opened the door and they're all waiting on me. I'm like, you guys waiting on me? But we had a good time there. Shout out to us, the Sheriff Leonard, who's out there doing big things. So one of my good Mike, Honesty. Thanks, folks. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Make sure you get out and support her book now. Besides, she's doing great things.
Oh yeah, March 25th is my first book signing at McShin at 5:30 to 6:30.
How can people find McShin?
McShin.org, Facebook, and Instagram.
There we go. That's why we do it. Take care, folks. Thanks now.
Let me get a selfie.